Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Biohazard Declassified podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the final Resident Evil animated movie to date, in building up in the release of Resident Evil Infinite Darkness coming out in mid-July. Resident Evil Vendetta, gentlemen. The last outing, the last outing before Infinite Darkness. What was your initial thoughts? So let's start with Matt.
All right. So initial thoughts. I mean, this definitely was a movie that was made for the fans. It was meant for action. It was meant for fast-paced characters, bringing everybody together, getting to see Chris and Leon on the same screen, and of course, a nice little touch throwing Rebecca in there as well. I remember the first time watching it, I enjoyed it. I liked the interaction. I liked that it was always at a consistent pace. It didn't feel like any part of it was that slow. Just the story for me just wasn't there. You can tell out of the 3 CGI movies that we got, this is probably the third ranked of all of them. It was all right. It's okay.
So I rewatched it in the lead up to all of these podcasts. I've gone back and rewatched it just before going live, and without a doubt, this is the weakest of the 3. But you got to think of the timing that this come out. This come out at a time where Resident Evil 5 and 6, quote unquote, action horror. Actually, it's come out just before Resident Evil 7. I was thinking of Damnation for a second. Excuse me. But this does predate Resident Evil 7, or it can't either come out just before or just afterwards. So Resident Evil was in different places it is now, is what I'm trying to say. Followed Chris, Leon, and Rebecca, as you mentioned, and we've got a new villain in Glenn Arias. We'll be delving into different plot points, but I'd like to pick up from you, Derrick. Rebecca, this is the debut of Rebecca in media outside of the Resident Evil games specifically. She wasn't in a live action film. The first time I've seen her. What was your thoughts on them? And this will be an extremely loaded question, but what was your thoughts on them completely retconning Rebecca's character and turning her into more of a damsel in distress rather than the ass-kicking hero from Resident Evil 0?
Well, I will say that like Resident Evil 0 kind of is like a weird outlier because even in Resident Evil 1, she was absolutely not an ass-kicking hero. That being said, Zero does still exist, so it's like we know that she's capable. That also being said, it's been quite a few years, and she definitely is less of the action chick and more of like the brains, which was kind of always the case, but it's even heavier in this one. I don't hate what they did with her. I do hate her kind of being sidelined for most of the movie. But in general, it's just I see the reasons they did the things they did, but I don't necessarily agree with them.
Yeah, I mean, I was worried when I was watching this that it was almost like Rebecca Chambers didn't even exist before, Raccoon City and that sort of thing. This was just a fresh take on Rebecca Chambers. I'll be fine with that. But what they've done is they've still integrated her old character. And I know that was you mentioned it in Resident Evil Remake, and that was one of my big flaws about Resident Evil Remake, is that in itself retconned Resident Evil 0 to like unimaginable levels for no apparent reason. Just completely turned Rebecca into a damsel in distress that I really don't think that she is. But yeah, very very bizarre choice to include Rebecca in the game in this in the film in this context. Overall, I would say this film is still substantially better than the live action films. Something that I'd like to take away from that. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on.
Well,
I'd say that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I'll say I kind of talked about it before when we talked about Damnation, and that the big difference is that the Resident Evil movies, like the live action movies, tried to pretend that they were adapting something, whereas the Resident Evil CG movies instead are like, we're just adding on to the universe that's already there. They're not trying to do things that we've already seen and loved. They're like, all right, let's mess around with the pieces we have and put them in random. Sometimes feel like they have like a set of dice that have just character names on them, and then they just roll them, and they're like, all right, in this movie will be, and then it's like, it's like Leon, we got Chris and Rebecca. Oh, that's a new one. All right, let's go, and then just go from there. But in general, that's the big benefit that the CG movies have, is that not only are they directly connected to Capcom, but they're not adapting anything. They're just going with what we already know. And then adding to it, as opposed to whatever the hell the movies were trying to do, in that they were like, yeah, we're adapting Resident Evil, and then throwing half of Resident Evil out the window.
Yeah, definitely not a fair assessment. And that's always been the beauty of the the animated films, is that Capcom have a lot more creative control involved with them. They have their own direction, definitely, but they're still very much firmly in Capcom's grasps. So let's start this from the beginning. We are introduced. We're introduced to Chris Redfield, who is who's got a completely different look this time round.
Different voice too.
Yeah. He is voiced by. It's a chap that was actually a mocap for a previous role, and it wasn't Chris.
Yeah, I think it's Kevin Dormand. I think that's the actor. I can look it up here real quick. I believe it's Kevin Dormand, though, is his name.
And he completely looks different from like just obviously he's the overall the carrying of Chris Redfield, the way he carries himself is pretty much exactly like Chris Redfield. It's not like Resident Evil 7 Chris, where it was completely left field, but this is a very, very different looking Chris Redfield.
Yeah, it is Kevin Dormand, by the way. But yeah, he definitely comes across a bit different. And I've always, like you said, he does act and like not necessarily act, but carry himself as the same way. But like, just it is like just close enough to like Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, Chris, that it's like Uncanny Valley type stuff that we're getting into.
Agreed. And again, he takes the team into uncharted waters, goes to a scary looking mansion with the presumption of it being a rescue mission. And you do get some really cool moments here, I must admit. Inside this, you get an ultimate throwback. I have to pause this. An ultimate throwback to the mansion incident, which I think a lot of people missed initially, and I missed the first time round. Again, Chris re-entering a familiar territory in a vacant mansion. It was the absolutely beautiful sight to see here. But again, he takes his squad into absolute uncharted territory, and they all end up dead.
Yeah.
A classic, a classic Chris Redfield trope, which is why in Resident Evil 8 he was so reticent to take a squad with him, because he's sick and tired of everybody dying around him, which is probably fair enough.
Yeah, I saw a joke, like I guess a meme in general, that was like it was like on one of the Resident Evil groups I followed. It was, hey, you need help in there, Cap, or whatever, and then it shows Chris flashing back to all the people that he's seen die, and then he's just like, no, you'll just slow me down, and they're like, wow, thanks, Cap, and it's just him just like
it's pure Vietnam flashbacks.
Yeah. The trees are speaking zombie.
But we're shown a really, really cool take on a zombie. It's in the form of a child. We've never seen a child zombie before in Resident Evil, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't remember one.
But what I find really cool about the scene, the entry scene to the first BOW, is it almost has like, and this reminds me of Blade 2. The mouth almost splits open, and it's a really cool visual. And I've only ever seen that in sort of Blade 2 with that variant of vampire. I thought that was really cool. And then inevitably the zombie goes down to absolutely tear everyone to pieces.
Yeah, so they get shredded by some bog standard zombies for the whole first part of the movie. I love it. Because like after so much normal zombie, you kind of get used to it. And, like, of course, Chris and them are used to it. That's why, like, Leon and Claire survived the airport like it's no big deal. But it's nice to see the regular zombies actually get some work in immediately.
Agreed. And I feel like this movie does have some cool references in it. And I feel like there's a reference in here to the original, John Carpenter's The Thing. It's got this kind of cruel. I can't even explain what the BOW is, but it's this crawling woman, and it looks exactly like one of the things. It's pretty cool, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to say it's like half a woman, but she can control her like spinal cord like a scorpion almost. It's really weird, but super cool.
And then it naturally moves on, and then another reference. I can't go without talking about this, and I don't know how this happens, but these chaps somehow managed to get diced up, and it is the coolest throwback to the first Resident Evil movie. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, there's like wires in the hallway, like super tight wires or something. Yeah, it's so funny. It's funny. I mean, it's dark. It's funny.
Yeah, but what was kind of bizarre about that is like they're running at such momentum that they just completely disintegrate, but still manage to maintain their skeletal structure. It's just absolutely like mind-bending physics we got here. But again, a cool visual. I did like seeing that. We're then introduced to the main antagonist of the film, which is Glenn Arias. Derrick, run down this man's modus operandi. It's completely bizarre.
I love it. I think I should probably preface it before I get into this that this movie is bad, but I love it to death. I don't know what it is, but especially the villain, Glenn, like has this like weird, like he is on a vendetta against, I assume, America for bombing his wedding because he's an arms dealer. And to do that, he has decided that he is just going to go about the circuitous route of like getting a BOW, figuring out how to make BOWs that think, and then just unleashing it on, like, I think New York. I think it's just outright stated that it's New York. And it's like that is his motivation. But then it gets like weirdly diverted when he sees Rebecca because she looks like his wife.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, and then it becomes a weird, like, half revenge, half, like, heartthrob thing. And then it's like, I'll wait till we get to the scene. But the scene in the, like, screen room with the ring, that scene, I don't know why I love it so much. It's so cool. We'll talk about it more when we get to it. But yeah, that's kind of his thing. Is he's like an arms dealer and does BOWs and is out for revenge because of his wedding getting bombed.
Yeah, he's definitely most peculiar, a most peculiar character. But again, he has this ability, and Matt, we saw this in Damnation. He has this ability to control BOWs, and this was kind of pictures the way they pitched it in the movie. The way I felt was, this is the first time we're going to see BOWs controlled by humans. It's like, no, you literally did that in the previous movie. I've no idea what you're talking about.
The first zombie variant, I guess, if they were not including any type of mutated Los Plagas or anything like those lines in 4, 5, or 6. But the idea that this was the first standard, typical C-class, A-class zombie that they could specifically have target other units. It wasn't just random. And then the way they describe how it works is a little confusing and just kind of like they threw it in there to the plot. Well, it's like, well, we put it in the water and then we put it in the air. That's it.
Air, water mixed together, something happens, and then everyone's a zombie. But there are some one thing, and again, like I know it feels like we're having a little bit of fun at the film's expense here, but there are some really cool action sequences. Sometimes they can come across a bit hokey, almost like a gun ballet show, for use of a better term.
My favorite part.
Yeah, I'd say that that's probably. There's only one that really was even I was like, all right.
So then we have a brief face-off with Glenn and Chris, and we're then jump on over, and then now we're with Rebecca Chambers, who is now a professor. Upon graduating from STARS and whatever special forces she was with, she is now a professor. She's learning about all these different viruses. I think this is the A virus, if I'm not mistaken. A virus?
In this movie,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the A virus, the animalism virus, I think.
Indeed, another A, B, C, D, E, and F virus.
Yeah.
Now,
alphabet virus.
yeah. Now, Rebecca's working on a vaccine. Now, what's interesting about this is I've always been under the assumption that with the T virus, for example, you die and then you reanimate. So to me, dying's pretty irreversible. So I'm actually, although saying that this is more of a vaccine rather than antidote. So maybe that's the way of getting out of it.
I think the general gist is that this virus turns people into zombie-like people, as opposed to killing people and then reanimating their corpse. I don't know that that's for sure. That's just me spitballing, but
it's almost like, it reminds me of, did you ever watch 28 Days Later? It was kind of like that. They're not really dead. They're just absolute psychos that just can't be controlled. Well, they can in this movie.
They're like fast zombies. Yeah.
See, that's my problem with this. Well, that's one of my problems with this movie. Basically, the idea of them being dead throughout the games and the books and everything up till this movie just retcons all of it. Because we see a normal, healthy human being become infected, start attacking other people once infected, having the abilities of, being able to get shot and being a bullet sponge and biting and infecting others. And then all of a sudden, this super special fairy dust comes down from the plane, the vaccine, and we see the first homeless guy, the first one that gets infected, just turns back to normal within like 10 seconds.
Oh, actually, that's
no bullet wounds, no
that's
nothing.
Right.
Just he's like back to normal.
Actually, that's completely right. So they're not even treating this like a vaccine. They're treating this like an antidote and a vaccine.
Yeah. I will. They don't show us anyone who had like gotten shot or anything. It's weird. It's like they're like, yeah, the people who were just kind of shambling around as a zombie are back to normal, and then they like, there's like the inevitable question of, well, what if you ate someone, or like what if you got shot or something and your leg got blown off and you kept going? It's like, what do you like now? Are you back to normal? But now you're like, oh god.
Yeah, they specifically kept that off screen just so.
Right. It's like we get into the whole thing of like, do you remember what you were doing? And if so, if you ate someone,
it's almost like a reverse Thanos snapping his fingers. Like people getting snapped back into existence and are like, oh wait, why am I eating this pigeon? Or why am I yeah, I'm alive, but I've eaten my entire family.
3 children, but you're okay now.
Yeah, imagine you got half a arm steak in your mouth and you're just like it's like, oh god, what have I done?
Agreed. And naturally, this Glenn's team, I guess, is after the vaccine, and they want to put a stop to it because that'll mess up their bioterrorist activities.
Yeah.
But anyway,
they're trying to sell the virus afterwards.
That's it. Anyway, they find Rebecca in a laboratory, and they actually dispense this the virus through the air conditioning, a la Resident Evil 1, and most of her staff actually do get killed, or they obviously succumb to the A virus. But no, Rebecca has a trick up her sleeve, because fortunately, at the right place at the absolute right time, her vaccine has synthesized. So fortunately, Rebecca, with seconds to spare before her inevitable turn into the quote unquote undead, manages to inject herself with the vaccine, and it fortunately pays off. So she retains. She is absolutely fine. She convulses a bit, but she'll be all right.
Imagine they bring back Rebecca just to kill her immediately.
Yeah.
I'd have been pissed. I'd have quit Resident Evil right there.
Yeah, so I don't know that I could have done it. I'll admit that I'm biased. I think Matt's the same way. I think Matt and I both are biased towards Rebecca, but I think you'd be like, all right, I'm done. I'm out. You know?
So again, like I don't know about you guys. I don't know whether it's because I've been like, just a Resident Evil fan for years and years and years, but just a zombie fan in general. Like, to me, if you're infected, there is no other choice than death. Like, the second you're infected, there is no get out of jail free. Oh, I've been vaccinated. Oh, I've got the antidote. No, you've been bitten. You are now on the absolute death trail. Like, you've got moments to live. We better put you out your misery before you turn and eat us all. But this film kind of turns that on its head. I know this was briefly mentioned or briefly looked at in Resident Evil Apocalypse, because didn't they have the antidote in Resident Evil Apocalypse? I think Carlos has it. Doesn't he get bitten, or somebody in the archive? It's been such a long time. Maybe that's a future podcast, but I'm sure that's explored in Apocalypse. But I've never really been a fan of that. Is my ultimate point. What are your guys' thoughts on vaccinating the undead?
Well, it happens in 3 too. It now occurs to me.
Oh, well, yes. Is that the T virus
Jill.
she gets infected by?
I don't know. What is it? Is it something like that the Nemesis specifically has?
The Nemesis
That's a
variant.
good
I'm not
question.
sure.
The Nemesis variant of the T virus.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, but she is infected for sure, and she is dying on the table, and then, Carlos saves her. But
Well, I think the vaccine is specifically an inhibitor for the T virus. So even though it's a mutated version throughout the parasite, his infecting is still infection of the T virus, which is why the vaccine worked on her.
yeah, I'd say it's one thing if we're talking about Sherry. My brain stopped for a second there. If we're talking about Sherry, because she's got like a genetic tie to the whole operation. But with Jill, it's like, well, like, I mean, yeah, I guess the vaccine did it. You know what I mean? I don't really know. I guess I can't really make an argument against the vaccine part now that I start thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like, you start looking into it, and it's like they always have ways out of it somehow. Every game has had one, I guess, at this point. Like,
Well, let's think. What main character hasn't been infected in some way, shape, or form? I mean, like, what, Chris? Chris is the only one that hasn't been infected with something?
yeah, I'll say at this point it's Chris. Well, Claire, the Redfield bloodline remains pure.
Strikes
Yeah,
again.
the purest.
Yeah, it remains pure. Or did it? No. The T-Abyss, no, the virus in Revelations 2. Claire has that.
Is
Remember?
that
Because if they get,
is that canon?
I can consider that. Yeah. I mean,
I'm pretty sure they're canon. I don't.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
Yeah, I would say, but yeah, like, it's not the T-Abyss that's in Revelations 1, but like in Revelations 2, she gets the one that's like, if you're scared enough, you change into a weird fish monster. So it's just Chris at this point. Just Chris.
Who has survived? Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
this is where Rebecca meets Chris. He eventually does come to the aftermath of the laboratory after Rebecca injects herself with the vaccine and seeks medical attention. Now, what they did notice is the zombies, they inhibit something very similar to the Los Illuminados, of course, the cult from Resident Evil 4. And there's only one person in the entire world that has dealt with the Los Illuminados and can provide expert analysis and decision making, and that is Mr. Leon Sinatra Kennedy, who they eventually meet. Who they eventually meet in I think he's in the Colorado mountains, isn't he, or something like that.
Yeah, he's just drinking his sorrows away at a bar in the mountains.
Indeed, no altitude sickness or anything like that. Just
No.
drinking away. And again, this is so frustrating because to me, this is lazy. This is just copying Chris Redfield's arc from Resident Evil 6. And I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but the whole premise of, oh, he's not wasting his life, but he's, sitting on his arse, not doing anything, and people come to get him back. I just found this was this movie come out 5 years after Resident Evil 5. I'm sure there could have been some cool way they could have got Leon involved in this. It just feels really tacked on.
Yeah, I do feel like I liked Leon finally getting like tired of the shit, but you're right in that it was like the way they showed that was just, well, we did it with Chris, let's just do that again. And this is after 6, so there's no excuse. It's not like they're like, oh, it's like they think that the only way Americans show their sorrow is to go and drink.
What were your thoughts, Matt?
It's fair enough for me, because the thing is, if we think timeline wise, even if it's for a few years, Chris has been more involved with BOWs than Leon has. And Chris took a direct method in fighting the BOWs, where Leon was more of a chess piece or a knight for the Secret Service, and had his own missions that he was put onto. And Leon is just finally getting caught up to the point where he's had his teams and he's been in more situations with BOWs that he's really feeling what Chris has. So it makes sense that Leon got to the part where Chris was. But if that was what happened, we should have had Chris talk Leon down instead of it being Rebecca talking both of them down. And the truth is, I like Rebecca's interaction in this. Because whether you thought it was a damsel in distress or she was a special forces team member, many years have passed. She focused on what she really wanted to do. She's not used to BOWs or fighting anymore. She went into a field she was ready that she can help people with. So the feeling of her being more of a damsel in distress in this movie makes sense to me. I think it was the right call. She's not back to being that engaged character who's used to this physical combat. She's playing the role she should. And of course, it should be her, the smartest one, talking to them both about what they're still fighting for. And that's what really gets to Leon and Chris in this. Because let's be honest, they both lost a lot of people and have seen a lot of death throughout the years. So Chris just followed Leon just followed the same path as Chris, and Chris just happened to be at the point where he was, I guess you could say, getting over those things, that he could actually see Leon in that position and try to help him out.
But anyway, go on, Derrick.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't remember his name, but like I talked about last episode, the one guy, it's like JD or JC or something, being like the heart of the team, and then Rebecca kind of fills that niche in this case, even though she's in part of the team briefly, but she immediately is like, get your shit together, you're both better than this. And I always like having like a character that's like the heart of the team. I talked about last time, it's always a good role to have because it is a nice little bit of levity in the group and stuff like that. So I agree with Matt, and it's perfect spot for Rebecca to be in. And like you said, she's probably smarter than both of the other two combined, to be honest. So
But anyway, enough about that, lads. There's a massive shootout occurring, and everyone, the whole place is getting destroyed, and it's absolute madness. A barmaid actually does get killed in this scene, and
I saw that in the chat. She gets shredded.
The gruesome. Yeah, like literally we get to see the hand pop off in the round. I'm like, okay, all right.
Brutal.
Kind of never mind that shit. Here comes Mongo. I have no idea. What this character's name is, but it is absolutely. Let me see if I can get a still of this. What is it? A tyrant? It's never quite explained. He's a menace.
It's the girl's dad. Her name is Maria Gomez. I cannot remember his name.
See, I thought
it was Eduardo.
I actually got
like that.
non-platonic relationship vibes from these two.
Well, I guess maybe they didn't do the family thing quite right, but I mean, it was love, but it was familial love. That's her dad, if I remember correctly.
I can't remember because the movie, let's be honest, the movie didn't really keep my attention to their backstory.
It might be Garcia, actually. Hold on.
Garcia or Eduardo, or it was one of those.
No, I'm saying Maria. Here we go.
Random Spanish name number 4.
His name
is Diego.
Diego. There it is.
Diego.
It's Maria Gomez and Diego Gomez. And they were just at the wedding when it got bombed. So that's why they are like this.
Right. Okay. Okay. That
I
kind
love
of
the
makes sense.
whole plot of this is basically that the U.S. government air striked, like robot striked, just literally just like,
Yeah.
Yep.
all right, I'm a villain now.
Yep.
Like
Created
that's the plot.
turned a guy from I'm just an arms dealer to oh fuck you in particular.
When drone
like-
strikes go wrong, like that's what this movie
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Indeed. And it's almost like if you can take anything away from this movie, its real meaning is if you're the US government, stop bombing arms dealers because they'll come back to haunt you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
It's not
Especially
the
on their
first-
wedding day.
Yeah, so it's not the first movie to do that, but damn if it doesn't drive it home especially hard.
And Zero Dark 30, eat your heart out.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
we have this scene, and Rebecca, in her infinite wisdom, somehow manages to be kidnapped, and this is where this film just goes mental, absolutely mental. You've got Glenn in full wedding attire. Someone's dressed up Rebecca. There was a nice iconic scene where she was in her original outfit, which was cool to see.
Yeah, that was a good throwback.
But anyway, fuck
It
that.
looked like she hadn't aged like a year. Like she hadn't aged at all.
Oh, indeed. But anyway, fuck
hair
the
is
outfit.
longer.
She's now in a bridal dress, and she's
Yeah.
about to get married.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it. Yeah.
So, Derrick,
Yeah.
I know you're clamoring to talk to me about this wedding, about this kind of wedding plot arc. What on earth is going on?
I too also want to kidnap and marry Rebecca. No, but jokes aside, I think the reason I like this is this scene actually, believe it or not, it's really batshit and bonkers and really out of place in the movie, kind of. I'm gonna be real with you. I'll admit that. But I also really like I'm gonna make a weird comparison here. This is the Far Cry villain scene for me,
Yes.
but for Glenn. Because it's like this person is like a super strong, super cool villain. Here's why they're fucking nuts, right? And like, I really love the scene, especially when like he like pulls out his wife's arm and like takes the ring off of it. And he's like gonna try and put it on Rebecca, and she resists, of course. Yeah, and there it is. There's the wife to be originally that looks almost exactly like Rebecca. But anyway, and then he goes, you know what? It's fine. We'll just put her arm on you.
Oh,
And,
yeah. Splashy
and I was
splash.
like, Jesus Christ. Like, oh God. But I think that's why I like the scene, is because it does give me those like Far Cry villain vibes, in that it's like almost like in the beginning with Pagan Min, where he's like covered in blood and taking a selfie with the main character, you know, like he's just like, it's that kind of scene where it's like this character is absolutely nuts, and this is why they're cool.
Like a little bit of Shining vibes, to be honest, too.
Oh, yep, I can see
He
that
made
too.
me think of Jack a lot. But yeah, just my God, that whole 15 minutes of a waste of time. So
I will say that Rebecca's really stupid for resisting, because it's like, it's just a ring, just deal with this and then escape later, right? You don't have to smack him right now. It's just a ring. Just calm down, you know? Like,
I love you too. Yeah.
Right, yeah, we'll deal with this later. You'll get yours. Like,
Yeah, it's
sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, yeah,
Oh no,
go on.
you're good. But that's my side summing it up. Okay, drone strike. My wife's dead. You look like my wife. Let me sidetrack what I'm doing to destroy the world. And let's get married, but on my terms, and then I'll still destroy the world. Like that's what Vendetta is all about. Just throw Leon and Chris in there, a couple explosions, a tyrant, some dogs that are just stupidly fast that run over 100 miles per hour.
I love it.
Which we'll get to soon enough. And not to mention this one character that, for the first time other than Wesker, we've seen Chris get his ass handed to him. Like, even in the first fight scene, like, it was not even a competition. Like, Chris was just getting his ass beat by this guy. And then we get to the second fight, and for some reason, they're equal now. Okay.
Yeah, I will say, I did like that for Arias's like intro at Back at the Mansion, that he just jobs Chris. It's not even a matter of like being like Wesker is just faster and stronger because of the virus or the progenitor stuff that he's got now. But Arias is just better than Chris, and I like that a lot, actually. And then, like you said, they kind of shit on it in the next fight scene between the two.
Yeah, because he's not really, and again, the key to always, and what I was told in my studying for my degree is, the key to a good story is a change in character. There has to be a change in character. Chris started off as this character. He has to go through a change throughout the film to get to the ultimate climax of the film. But I see what you mean with that, in that we've got this ass kicking Chris who gets his absolute arse bait, and to be honest, is saved by the bell, by the helicopter team from just getting absolutely mauled. But there's not really a big change, There's no Rocky montage. There's no running up a mountain, with Burning Heart playing in the background. There's none of that.
I think what they wanted to do was they wanted to give the impression that Chris underestimated his enemy and was not expecting someone of this caliber, which makes sense. But as the fight continued on, it was for over a minute. By that time, he realized what he was dealing with, and he should have given it his all. So I don't think that's a good plausible reason.
Yeah.
It goes from straight one-sided fight to, we're equal ballet pistol fighting.
I will say that I don't know. I won't necessarily say that he beats him either, though, if I remember correctly. Like, it's just a matter of positioning that wins the fight for him, if I remember correctly. Because he gets chucked around a couple times on that glass ceiling part. So maybe it's just a matter of Chris just being just getting lucky, right? Because I don't, like I said, I can't even necessarily say he won the fight so much as just the fight ended in his favor, Yeah,
I think that's unreasonable. So the rescue now begins. Chris, Leon teaming together. This would be, I think this was set before Resident Evil 6, so this would have been for the very first time that Chris and Leon have teamed up together.
I don't remember.
Yeah, because unless it's mentioned off screen, because I know it's mentioned in Code Veronica that Leon and Chris know each other. So whether they went on any missions together then, I'm not sure.
Right.
But something I'm just now watching snippets of the film again. This is the first time in an animated film that a live location, a live real life location, not a fictitious, is actually used, because they use New York to deploy the A virus. Because if you remember in Degeneration, it was Harvardville, which I believe is a fictitious place.
I believe so, yeah.
And in Damnation, it's the fictitious Eastern Slav Republic or something like that.
Yep.
Again, completely fictitious. So this the main crux of the film, where the virus is deployed, is in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
How they get there?
I feel like they straight up say that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
they had
some of
no
the
trouble mentioning anything in this movie.
And some of the penthouse views, you can clearly see it's New York. You've got One World Trade Center in the background, etc.
Yeah.
But very, very similar. Again, relying on Resident Evil 6, which I think is a bit easy to do, but they deploy the virus in gas form, and it just goes through the entire city. Initially, Matt, I'd like you to explain, to your best of your abilities, how this, because it's not everyone that gets infected. It's only people that have, is it drank bottled water or something like that?
So, the idea behind distributing it isn't too far out there. I mean, any type of water source would be very important for distributing a virus or a pathogen or anything like that. We've seen it in countless movies, video games, stories, books. So that part's fine. It's just the idea of one element being the initial infection and another element being the, what's the word for it? The catalyst.
Activation. Yeah.
Yeah, the catalyst. It's a little bit far out there. So we get the idea that he wanted to slowly set this up by having people drink the water, but then because Chris and Leon are onto their plans, they have to speed up the process by using the next element, which is, distributing it by gas or any type of thing that can get into your lungs or respiratory system. So it makes sense that they could get a bunch of trucks around the city without anyone realizing what's going on. And it's not until the BSA caught on and started doing, drone strikes and helicopter strikes on those trucks that they were able to start slowly getting the situation under control. But yeah, see, that's the thing. A lot of these viruses beforehand were considered outbreaks. We saw it start in a place. It got bigger, it got worse, and then it got quarantined. So if they have something that's laying dormant in the body, which is basically what the virus was in this movie, it's the first time we've seen something like that, having it dormant in their body with a trigger available, and all it takes is, literally the click of a finger, and then you have millions of infected, not to mention ones that can target specific creatures or people. I mean, it makes for a very hectic situation. So, but that's the first time we've seen it.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Was that the answer you were looking for?
It was a rather expansive answer, and I'm very, very grateful.
Mhm.
Now, in this, and this is slightly taking us out of the virus, but there's a Resident Evil Vendetta. The film had a partnership with Ducati, the bikes. So inevitably,
okay.
there was a scene in it which involved Leon and some extremely fast Cerebus, and these are fast. I mean, Leon's got to be going 70, 80 miles an hour, and these zombie dogs are catching up. But they're also made of concrete because they managed to flip a car, and I've never seen anything in my life.
Yeah,
like
bite a
this.
guy's head clear off in one bite. Like they're
Yep.
super Cerberuses.
Most of Chris's team survives this time, but yeah, Damien gets his head just clean cut, bit right off.
Yeah, Damien gets the short stick. It's rough.
Yeah, I will say that this scene is so good for no reason at all.
Indeed, it's not great for a Resident Evil film, but a really cool action sequence. It's all animated as well, which is cool.
Yeah, I will say about this movie that the cinematography in it is amazing. Some of the camera decisions they make and stuff like that are just so cool. And I don't know why they went so hard on the cinematography specifically in this movie. There's some slow-mo, there's some really interesting angle choices that are not what you just automatically go to. So it's they went really hard in the camera work, quote unquote, for this one. I don't know why.
And that's a perfect segue to I think everybody knows what this scene is, and that's the infamous shootout with Chris Redfield, Leon, and hundreds and hundreds of zombies in this hallway. It is like something out of John Wick.
It's
don't get me wrong. It's fantastic. It is an absolutely fantastic, beautiful, kick-ass scene. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it. But it is so completely out of place in the RE universe. It is literally John Wick ×2. Not to mention, because we're sponsoring a motorcycle in this movie, the motorcycle has to be in just about every scene up until we saw it for the first time. So he's going up the stairs, he's in the elevator, he's in the hallway, he's on the roof later, he's going through the air. But yeah, this scene was fantastic. There's a lot of martial arts and movements in here that don't make sense, but the characters are so quick. You're just watching for the action.
I will say that
it's good.
I will say it does kind of demonstrate the part of the reason why you can't really have these characters for the games anymore.
because the games would be easy.
Yeah, but this is, while I will say that it's out of place for Resident Evil as a horror franchise, it's not out of place for these characters to be this badass in dealing with zombies anymore. Right? It's
Yep.
this is exactly how they know exactly what they're doing at this point. It's so good at selling that to me that these two are just veterans at this point.
That's why it's so weird, because it makes perfect sense, but putting it in a video game, we've just never seen it. We've seen little hand-to-hand combat moments that last a couple of seconds between each, but this is the first time we've really seen their endurance, their martial arts, their flexibility, just their response time is incredible.
Yeah.
It's stupidly incredible. Could you imagine that in the video games?
Oh, I wouldn't hate a spin-off game that uses a combo system like Devil May Cry or something, but is just your Leon or something spin kicking zombies for the whole game.
Hear me out. I'm just looking for a Resident Evil and Time Crisis collab.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is bang, 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 bang. Reload.
Yeah. I say just put Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside Chronicles in a cabinet for me, please. Like, I'm begging.
But yeah, just absolutely insane. And again, no reloading. Obviously,
No.
I made
No
the
need
comment
for
as
it.
I was watching it that Leon and Chris were on their new game plus runs of Vendetta with their infinite ammo.
Yeah.
No
Chris
reloads.
has to reload a couple times, but Leon doesn't. No, Leon doesn't reload at all during the time.
I think we see like 1 or 2 M16 or M4 reloads, and then I think
Yeah.
at one point, like, it looks like Leon's gonna put another clip into his deagle, and that's it. Just nonstop
Yeah.
shooting.
Yep. I do love that he starts out with like a blacktail or something, and then like the moment like shit hits the fan, he's like, "All right, Lightning Hawk."
It's like
Just
he knows it's the boss fight, so he's getting out the strongest weapon in the game.
He's like, "Oh, like you said, it's New Game Plus." He's like, "Oh, I know what's coming next. Better pull up the Magnum." Like,
Got my Lightning Hawk maxed out, ready to go.
Yeah. Oh,
Which has no
man.
recoil, by the way, because he literally shoots the thing like it's a 9mm, and there's literally no recoil.
One-handed from a bike. Yeah, just
Yeah, just shoot instead of doot. But
yeah.
Before
it's
we
fun. It's a movie.
before we get to the main crux of the boss battle, we do have this sub boss battle with Chris and Diego, and I just really felt like they undersold Diego in this film. Like there was,
Yeah.
like aside from the big shooting scene, like he appears in this scene with Chris and then just dies. Well, quote unquote,
Yeah.
dies.
Same thing for the other
Nice.
female, because basically they get the group together, and it looks like you're looking at like a Metal Gear Solid boss theme. Like, here's the bosses, here's what they do, and then what we get like 10 seconds of each of them. The girl doesn't even do anything. She's in a car when it gets shot at by one of the helicopter drones, and then just falls out, and you think she's dead. And then with
she, like,
Diego,
He's on the street. Yeah.
we get the idea that he's a powerhouse. So yeah, he's kicking Chris's ass, and Chris is smart this time. He actually throws an incendiary grenade on the ground, and this guy doesn't notice it until it's too late. But then that's it. That's the fight. I will admit that I liked the fact that he had another form, especially with like the bolts coming out of his back and removing his helmet. That's the part that made me think about the Thing, because the Thing's came out of his back, and then he basically started absorbing or assimilating the main villain,
Yeah.
which I loved. That was definitely like a little Thing Easter egg that was pretty cool. And then we got our Vendetta version of a tyrant, I guess you would say.
Yeah, they did that scene justice too. It's like slow-mo and like all the parts falling off of him and stuff. That's so cool.
Like the spider web things coming out of his like his tendrils was really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. We hadn't seen anything quite like that.
Yeah.
And now we get another iconic scene, which is the how do I explain it? It's like a it's like a, you know, them fireworks that you get that spin around in a circle. What's it called? The Roman is it Roman wheel?
Roman candles. Roman candles.
I think the Roman candles. They have a Roman candle of shooting on the floor for a moment. It's pure.
Yeah.
It's almost like
these guys are the top martial artists in the world, but with automatic pistols at 2 feet away, they can't hit each other. It's the stupidest fight. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks cool. It looks really cool. But it is the most inaccurate fight. It's like you take 2 people that have never played the same first-person shooter and put them in a lobby together, and this is what you get.
These guys are just pure tech and button mashing at this point.
Yeah, so this is the one scene where I'm like, I can't excuse it. This is kind of bad. Like, I can't even ironically like it.
They've got the reaction speed to fight and dodge every zombie in the movie, but when it comes to like 2 people in front of them that can't aim a pistol right in front of themselves and turn it and hit the guy, they can't.
And they know he has to come towards him, but they don't fire like down right in front of themselves. They fire where he used to be. It's like these men know better. Like, both of them.
Yeah. If these were swords, it'd have been a completely different story. But no, we had guns for this one.
Right. Oh man.
Now it does turn out Diego is still alive. After a brief exchange with Chris and Glenn, he's actually thrown all the way to the ground. There's a lovely splat as well, which I didn't expect to see.
It was gross. Yeah.
It turns out that, and this is just on your point about assimilating. This is where Diego begins his mutation. So everything starts popping off. He starts all starting to mutate and stuff, and he actually pretty much assimilates and acquires Glenn. It's pretty
Which is
brutal.
weird because the exact reverse happens. He gets
Mhm.
control of the body when they're combined. Now you can still see Diego's head, like right here,
Yeah,
like where the eye would be if he was a G creature. But the original organism becomes the suborganism, which was really weird. It's almost like the strongest mind got to take over kind of thing. Or they had this
something like
plan
that.
There you go.
because we don't know what type of virus this is. We have no
Yeah,
idea.
or they might be sharing it. They might like be thinking together, essentially, like two brains.
Yeah.
There
So
you
I
go.
mean, I like the mystery, but we really have no idea what type of virus this is, or what type of virus would allow them to do this type of assimilation tactic. So
I do love that he still has a clear video game weakness, though.
Yes, yes.
It's like the glowing, like
got a glow
Reference
They did that in,
throb.
House of
Yeah.
the Dead.
yeah, they did that in Degeneration too, where like the main villain guy who was like the bioterrorist or whatever, like had like clear the eyes like you were talking about, like but they didn't really do it in Damnation, but this time again they're like giant glowing weak spot.
Oh yeah, and Damnation, they were like, no, you get super tyrants. Here you go.
Yeah, tyrants don't have a weak point. You just hope.
Just until an F-16 comes, and then you're fine. But other than that, Yeah.
Bird.
As
I'd
ever,
like to see what type of virus that was or where he came from, but we'll probably never get anything on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd love
because
to
he
see that.
can't be the A virus, right? Like
That there's no way that could be the A virus.
no, because it just turns people into zombies, as far as we saw.
Yeah.
As ever,
Hmm.
the plot armor comes to save Chris. Eminent
the
time
form
and eminent time to be crushed by this beast that has been procured at the bottom. But Leon and his Ducati motorcycle comes to the rescue. How Leon didn't die of carbon monoxide poisoning in the lift due to the excessive fumes, I'll never know. But of course, now we've got the real showdown. We've got all the main characters in play. You've got Rebecca, Chris, Leon all together finally to put this man or this hybrid down.
Mm-hmm. And eventually you get the team too. They show up too. Everyone shows up on this one rooftop.
Oh yeah, let's get to that next. And then of course we have the prototype for Resident Evil 3 remakes railgun. That just out of nowhere, the BSA has this super weapon that we wish we would have seen in previous movies that not only goes through the target, but multiple buildings and literally destroys like half the city in one
I was
shot.
about to say, I was like, you guys are trying to save the city and you just knocked down at least 3 skyscrapers. What the fuck?
It's like if you've ever watched Powerpuff Girls, wherever they stop the villain at the end, but the city is completely destroyed.
Yeah. We did it. We saved the town as it burns in the background.
Let me see if
yeah,
I
the
can get a
SpongeBob
sniff
meme.
on that. Yeah, there we go.
We did it. Yeah, we did it, Patrick. We saved the town. Oh,
It was
man.
cool, super cool. I love seeing weapon tech in like movies like this getting introduced. Like it was amazing.
Yeah.
But like, just look at this thing.
Yeah,
Okay, so Diego's head's gone, and so are the next 1, 2, 3, technically 4 buildings.
And they're going. They're like going down, gone. Yeah, like
it's almost like completely carpet bombing the city. The thing is, they didn't even kill him, so it's completely in vain.
yeah. And I think her name is Mara or Maya, one of those two. I love her, and I love Carrie Walgren who voices her, but it's like, what the fuck? Like, how are you like, yeah, this is fine. I'm just gonna shoot a hole through the entirety of New York.
There's also another major what the fuck moment where let me see if I can find it here, where Leon actually he like bounces up but manages to flip and shoot down. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. It's when he's
He takes a full force punch from this tyrant, which in any other movie or game we would have seen, he literally would probably be dead or have all his bones broken.
Yeah.
Literally gets knocked like 50, 60 feet up in the air, does a flip like as if he has control of how his body is at that moment, and just guns down with the 50 caliber, just shooting.
Yep. And slides down his arm instead. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, here we go. It's just absolutely insane.
Another cool, like it's cool, it's fun, it's live action, like you'd like it, but like just don't think too hard about it. Just let it happen.
I don't know.
I will give it credit. It almost seems like instead he doesn't get punched. I think he like puts his arms up and like gets one up about like lifted up by the punch. It's like he controls his way up. I
Like,
can't
yeah, even
guarantee. It looks like it's like a second before that. Instead of getting like hit, he does like this and like kind of like uses like the arm as a lift almost. I don't know. Like I don't know if you want to like go back and go frame by frame to figure that out or not. But
like if you jump from high like altitudes and do the barrel roll, that does help sustain some of the like the pressure from landing. But this man went 60 feet in the air, did a flip. His back would have still crashed onto the tyrant's arm and probably broke his back.
yeah, instead he
But
just like
no.
slides.
We do a front kick, use the elevation of the front kick to flip, and then because gravity works that way, he's fine.
Yeah.
He's good. I'm sorry.
Man.
It's a fun video. I did enjoy watching it, but this is probably the one of the three that you can trash talk the most and pull apart. So that's why we're here.
The other two definitely feel like full on Resident Evil. This one feels pretty John Woo at points.
Agree.
Wick, John Woo.
No, I was like John Woo, John Wick, both. You know, like.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's John Woo with the gun ballet shit, where it's like they're doing that spin. I'm expecting doves to start flying. You know, like.
And then you, of course, have the epic finale where the quote unquote tyrant. It's not really a tyrant. It's more Birkin, like a experiment, really.
Mhm.
And then he gets killed by a single M203 grenade round.
Yeah.
So,
but it's the weak point, though. It's the video game weak point.
Of course, the railgun to the neck wasn't enough.
That shot though is so good. Like the slow mo in that scene, I adore it so much. Like I said, the cinematography is the next level, but it's used on stuff like this.
Again, just on your point about these silly acrobatics, like I try and think this is a Resident Evil film, and then I get drawn back and think, oh, a Resident Evil based film, and I get drawn back and I think, oh, this is just My Name is Alice nonsense. Like we want to get away from this. We don't want superhuman protagonists, you know?
Yeah. It does suck. Like I said, I'm pretty bad about this in that I will like. So I even have like my friend and I even want to do a podcast someday of like just bad movies and why we love them so much. And so like I'm pretty bad about like if someone asks me, hey, how is that movie? I'll be like, oh, it's awful. You should watch it. You know, like it's so bad. I love it so much. Right? Like that's like basically. I think that's exactly what I texted the group when I was watching. I was like, this movie is so bad. I love it so much because I guess I just approach them for like the fun that I expect them to be. But I can also admit that this movie is just not a good movie. It's definitely not a good Resident Evil movie.
But again, substantially better than anything Constantine Films has put out to date. Yeah, notwithstanding the new stuff.
It at least follows its own rules, like of the universe that it's in, right? Like it follows pretty much all the rules that Resident Evil kind of set up. And I will say that technically the main characters kind of always tank hits from tyrants if you suck enough. I mean, they're guaranteed danger status, but like in the game, you can take a punch from Mr. X like that would knock your head clean off, and you just kind of stumble, and you're like, "All right, let's go, let's move." You know, it's so I guess like they're even following their own rules as far as the games are concerned. But it is like you said, it's like halfway between the games and the Alice nonsense.
Yeah, we're trying to steer away from it.
I mean, I guess it makes sense at this time period with the games and the movies that anyone that just recently had gotten into Resident Evil was probably more familiar with this type of movie and game compared to the originals. So I can understand their marketing, but it just wasn't catered specifically to the old fans. Like this was live action, jumping around, really cool stuff. But I mean, when you compare it to like 5, 6, even parts of Animation, like we had that period where it was Resident Evil was more about action than it was about horror. And then of course, you know, we turned that around with RE2 remake and 7. But at this point, I'd say a lot of people that had just started watching it would have anticipated this over what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, this came out between 6 and 7. I know that for sure. So yeah, I mean, you're right. It's exactly what was expected at the time.
And just to wrap the film up, the Rebecca, they find Rebecca. She's safe and sound. They manage to give her, because she is injected with the A. I don't know whether it's a more advanced A virus, but she's injected again. She's on a race against time and it's actually saved. And then they use the reserves that was stored by Glenn to then disperse over the city like Agent Orange. It's actually pretty frightening.
Yeah.
And it's again just a weird scene, as you're seeing on screen, just of zombies turning human. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about the repercussions of like the psychology of all that.
Because the truth is, I could have accepted everything we've seen in this movie up till that part, but at that part, I was just like, well, this just kind of like backfires on any virus we've seen up to this point. Is this like the
Mhm.
future of the viruses we're going to see in Resident Evil, or what's going to happen? Because we've never had a movie where, like I said, perfectly healthy humans can go back to being perfectly healthy humans. It just never happens. It doesn't happen. That's not how viruses work.
Yeah.
But
That being
it's
said,
new.
it is the way the games went though, if we're being honest. But it was mold instead of a virus, so it's like kill the
Mold,
mold. Yeah.
scaredness,
Scared
apparently
as yeah.
anger in the future,
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember what the T Abyss virus was all about, but it was there.
water.
Yeah, water. Sea creatures. How do we make sea zombies? Right? Like that was like the pitch for Revelations was I want a crab zombie.
Oh, it's just absolute. I'm playing that at the moment again, and it's just absolutely mental.
Yeah. I like it a lot, but it definitely is like really out there for some of the stuff.
And we do have this Marvel kind of post-credit scene. It has Diego's face mask, and then apologies, I've already forgotten her name. Maria,
Yep.
who didn't die in a random explosion. She is in fact still alive, and she looks like she's gunning for some vengeance. So, and we haven't seen that vengeance.
We'll probably never
Yeah.
ever
Yeah,
see
it's
unless
probably
Capcom
never
is
gonna
very
happen.
desperate for their plots.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So that was Resident Evil Vendetta, which
Yeah.
concludes our trilogy of Resident Evil films covered. Well, I suppose now that we've spoken about all of that, and I'll ask you thoughts at the start. We'll start with Matthew. What is your thoughts now you've had a chance to relive the experience that is Vendetta again?
So I'll say the same thing that I have for these CGI movies since the beginning. Even if the plot wasn't the greatest, even if it wasn't what I was expecting, they were still entertaining movies. They were still fun. They were still enjoyable to watch if you take the logic out of it. And I think Capcom knew that. People wanted to see something that would keep their attention and keep their eyes on the screen at the same time, throw in little hints of the franchise that made it what it is today. Um, Degeneration was basically 2 for me. Love it. 2 was one of my favorite games of all time. Damnation was very fan servicey with 2, as well as the Los Plagas and Tyrants. Story wasn't as great. Still enjoyed it. It was fun. Vendetta was just batshit crazy. Like they were like, look, as long as you have some things from Resident Evil in there, just go balls to the wall, do whatever you want. And that's exactly what happened. But it was still entertaining. And I think it's the perfect time for us to review these 3 because let's be honest, in 2 days, Infinite Darkness is going to be released on Netflix, and I'm very excited for that.
Agreed.
So,
And Derek?
Yep. I still, like I said, it's so bad. I love it so much. It's just a fun flick. As for the other 2, I agree that like Degeneration definitely is probably the best because it feels most like one of the games. It still has its moments like towards the end of it. It has like all the like extra like G Birkin plus type stuff going on basically, but I will say that they definitely go down in quality if we're being honest, but they're all still perfectly good films in my opinion. I enjoy them a lot. And I hope that the lessons that they learned in the game side of things carry through into the CG side of things when we get Infinite Darkness. I hope it's more horror based than action based and stuff like that. Especially because Leon, I think it takes place right after 4, if I remember correctly,
That's
but
right.
I'm not positive. So Leon shouldn't be a super powerful super spy by that point yet. He should just be He should still be a badass because in four he's pretty badass, but not quite to this level, of course.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Obviously, we're all excited for Infinite Darkness, and judging from the material that's already been released, we are leaning to the fact, leaning towards that it is going to be the typical survival horror experience that we saw in Resident Evil 2 remake, 3 remake, and now of Resident Evil 8. But yeah, that caps off the trilogy of animated films. I would say without question, Degeneration tops my list, followed by Damnation, and then Vendetta as the third. But again, want to preface this by saying totally better than any of the live action films, which I'm sure we'll cover some point down the line.
I'll have to.
I'd
I've
say
only
with
seen
the
I think I've only
exception of
seen the
the
first. I think I've only seen the first 3 all the way through, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. So I'll have to actually watch them if we do them.
I agree with Andy. The only counter argument I would say is the first Resident Evil movie is a solid movie.
Yes.
In my opinion, it'll always be a solid movie. But once we get halfway through Apocalypse, anything else is better. So yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I think it was James Cameron who come out and said that come out and said that Resident Evil, the first Resident Evil film, was one of his guilty pleasures.
Yeah. I can see it. Yeah, it's a surprisingly good adaptation once you put it juxtapose it next to what they did after that. So
Which has the biggest, even if you didn't play the first 2 games, the first movie has the biggest cliffhanger ever. Like the way it just fades out into the city and
Perfect.
the outbreak happened. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yep. So good and shit all over it.
And again, I'm sure we're going to be covering the Resident Evil films. There's a reignited spark with the impending release of the new Constantine films reboot of Resident Evil, which looks to be a more traditional look into the first RE, the first and second RE game. I think it'd be good to go back and see what Paul actually achieved all the way through the series and what was the outcomes at the end. But yeah.
That'd be a good lead up. I think we should do that.
Definitely, because I honestly, within the next, I would probably say, if not this month, next month, we will definitely be getting a trailer here soon for the new movie. It's supposed to release in November, so 3 to 4 months ahead of time is when usually trailers come out.
Yep.
Any week now, we could just get one.
And we're going to be ready.
I wouldn't be surprised if they drop it on us within the next couple of weeks for sure.
I can't think of any big game events or any Capcom things coming up anytime soon that they would be worthy of. So they just might out of nowhere just drop it for us, and the next thing you know, you wake up and the trailer's out.
Because TGS would be too late, right? That's in November, I think.
Same as the Comic-Con. It's going to be too late.
Yeah. Too late, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually thought we might see even a small teaser at E3, but we didn't. We only saw Infinite Darkness stuff. So yeah, it'll be. It was
the last Village presentation we had. The only thing they had for that was saying we have finished the movie. We are just finishing up CGI for the monsters. So that's the last thing we heard 2 months ago. So knowing how long CGI can take, probably a month or 2 at this point. So it's literally like the perfect time for a trailer to drop.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they've at the very least got enough CG put in it to put a trailer together. Like a minute and a half.
Yep. Agreed.
And as ever, keep update with all Resident Evil news at bhd.gg and Biohazard Declassified on Facebook. We're going to be covering every moment of it as it unfolds. So thank you two. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Damnation podcast, the Degeneration, Damnation, and the Vendetta podcast. Been brilliant, and we're definitely going to be covering some more movies in the future. Thank you to everyone who's listened to this podcast. This is Biohazard Declassified. Over and out.
Later.